Hello and welcome to First Impressions. This is a show where my co-host Dash Hooper and I evaluate a new album each week with a few simple ground rules. First, must be an album we've never heard before. Second, we're only allowed to play it once. After that, we take notes and rate it using a variety of categories. And the album we're going to be looking at tonight is the 1989 album Paul's Boutique by the Beastie Boys. So Dash, how are you doing tonight?
I am doing wonderful. Thank you. How about yourself?
I am doing well, so I can't complain. I'm on summer break, so it's a good time.
Right. I know that feeling.
It's like talk to me in like 4 weeks. I have a different answer for you. Just be probably not bad, just exhausted. But right now, feeling good, ready to talk about this Beastie Boys album. And I'll say all the research today, I didn't have to do my shallow research, comes from this gigantic book, the Beastie Boys book. I don't know if you've read it, but it's,
Yeah.
it's giant. And I also watched, they had they did kind of not even live readings. You couldn't read it all. That'd be a 10-hour performance, but they kind of did a live retrospective with the two surviving Beastie Boys. And I watched that as well. That's on Apple TV. So if you haven't had a chance, it's well worth a watch. But if you read the book, you're kind of going to get everything that was in there in the same way. So didn't have to do the shallow research, got everything from the book, straight from the mouth of the surviving members. So yeah, I enjoyed kind of doing my deep dive into the Beastie Boys this week.
That's nice. Yeah.
All right.
You know what's shocking though? What's shocking is we're getting ready to talk about an album. I mean, as all the good albums that they've had, and this is one of the ones that even you and I discussed a little bit about it, but well, we'll get to it. But it shocks me that this one was received the way it was, that you're getting ready to break us into. But I'm shocked.
Yeah, and I have a few theories as to why it was received that way, but yeah, it's definitely one that's got much stronger love through the years and not when it was, actually put out there. So I'm going to start off with a little history of the artist. So the Beastie Boys were an influential hip hop group that formed in New York City in 1981. They originally were a hardcore punk band, and it consisted of Michael Diamond, also known as Mike D, Adam Yout, and that's MCA, and then Adam Horowitz, which is Ad Rock, and then there was also the drummer Kate Schellenbach. So she was an original member of the band when they formed as a punk band in New York City. So when they were working as a punk band in New York City, they met Rick Rubin, who said that they should become a hip hop act. And that they did that in 1983. And he encouraged them to transition to hip hop, kind of built the persona that they created in the beginning of their hip hop years. And that was unfortunately not great for Kate Schellenbach because she didn't fit in with kind of the frat boy jock, persona that they were creating. And she got shoved out, and they then became no longer a punk band, but a rap band. And their first song was Cookie Puss, which is kind of a Jerky Boys prank call mixed with a beat and rap elements. And it was the first thing that got them noticed in the New York area. It got played in clubs, got played on local radio. And during that, they were also releasing multiple singles. Those singles were eventually what would land on License to Ill, which came out in 1986. And that's the first notice that I had of the Beastie Boys. And it was a huge album. First album that went to the #1 on the Billboard charts. It had hits Fight for Your Right to Party, No Sleep Till Brooklyn, and brought hip hop into the mainstream. And that's kind of what they signed on Def Jam. And that's what Russell Simmons was hoping to do, was bring rap into the mainstream. And he was using them. They feel that he used them as, here's some white rappers. We're going to use them to bring rap into the mainstream, and also kind of shaped the persona of these, frat boy party guys that you hear all throughout the album. And it's not to say it goes away on this album, but it's not quite as pronounced. And the first album, their
Right.
songs they completely disassociate themselves from. They never played Fight for Your Right to Party again after that tour. They, embarrassed about girls, but that was what shaped them, and that was also what kind of built them into this persona of the party guys, and they became that persona. And that's what led to them breaking apart from Def Jam Records and also kind of this disbanding for a little bit. And it wasn't until 1989 with Paul's Boutique that they got back together. And then after that, Check Your Head and Ill Communication came out, and those were huge. They were all over MTV, all over the radio with Sabotage and songs like
Huge.
that. So that pushed them into new musical boundaries. They also started to play their own instruments again on those next two albums. And through the years, they released more albums, Hello Nasty, To the Five Boroughs, and then Hot Sauce Committee Part 2 in 2011. And I think really Ill Communication and Check Your Head were the biggest peak of their commercial success after License to Ill. But in 2012, Adam Yauch, MCA, died of cancer, and that was the end of the band. They disbanded at that point and said that they would never perform again out of respect from them. But while they were up and running, they won 3 Grammy Awards and were introduced or inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2012. And they're kind of remembered for innovation, humor, and just the cultural impact of just bringing rap to the mainstream. So,
Right.
yeah, that's a lot on that one. So, Joey, how's it going? And Madness Network, how are you today? So I miss the notes or the comments when I'm reading from my notes. But like I said, these all come from the giant book, the Beastie Boys book. A great read. I mean, it's a lot of fun. If you like their music, you're gonna like
Yeah.
the book because they write it in the same vein. It's just kind of goofy and silly, sometimes emotional when they're talking about their final concert together and things like that. But it's just kind of right. It's a dive into their heads and all through the creative process from the punk years through, talking about what happened with the album we're going to be talking about today. So, yeah, let's dig into the history of this album. So, again, all the notes coming straight from the book. So, you can trust the source. It's not usually it's Wikipedia and a little bit of fact checking here and there. But when I have a book, it makes life a lot easier. So, after extensive touring, they were burned out. They didn't like who they had become. They didn't like being the drunk guys, and they didn't like who their audience had become. So the band just went on a kind of unspoken hiatus. And while they were on the break, Ad Rock went to Los Angeles to film the movie Lost Angels. I haven't seen it. I've seen the clip they play in their documentary, but it looks like a pretty rough movie. I haven't watched it. It's one of the ones
Yeah.
in the book, in the movie. He encourages you not to go and find it. He encourages you not to seek it out. So I haven't yet. I don't know. It's probably a hard one to find, although YouTube gets everything, but sometimes they yank them down as quickly as you put them up. Kind of like when I was trying to watch the final performance of Ozzy this weekend. As fast as they put up the footage, it was yanked down. So you'd be mid-song and it was gone. And yeah.
Gone. Yeah.
And that's what's going to happen a couple weeks from now in Comic-Con. As soon as they show the footage, someone's going to film it and it's going to be yanked down as soon as it's up. So watch fast. I guess that's what you have to do. So while he was in Los Angeles, he went to a house party and met the Dust Brothers. And there they were playing just this tape that they had created of loops and kind of all these funky beats. And he loved the layers of sound that they were created. And he called the other Beastie Boys and told them, we need to record with these guys. And I think before that, the Dust Brothers were known for working with Tone Loc and Young MC. So these were big mainstream albums, but not Beastie Boys albums. But they relocated, they rented out a house, and they started to record this album. And the majority was recorded in Matt Dike's apartment because Matt Dike was with them when they were at that house party, and they recorded in his apartment. But the record label was nervous about having this new talent that they had signed. They signed to Capitol Records. They didn't want their new talent to just do all this work in an apartment. So they rented out several expensive studios and finished the recording. But the band feels like the best work that they did for this album was what they were recording in that house. But they finished recording the album, found themselves in major debt, and were waiting for the release so they could kind of get out of this debt because the house they were renting was expensive. The studios they were renting were expensive. And unfortunately, it didn't blow up the way they wanted to. But while they were recording the album, the Dust Brothers created this collage of music with over 100 samples. And if you go to the Genius page, it lists every sample that's used and misses a few at that. And it's just a staggering amount. So they sampled the Beatles, James Brown, Curtis Mayfield, Johnny Cash, Bob Marley. My boys, the Eagles, get sampled on one of their songs. So yeah, they at the time, sampling laws were looser. They would have never got away with the album once sample laws got stricter. This album would have cost them millions upon millions just to clear the rights for all the samples. But for them, they were able to do it because the sample laws got stronger later when these bands started suing over and over again the bands that were sampling them, but they got away with it. They got sued but didn't actually lose the lawsuit, so it worked out. But when the album was released, it did not do well. It peaked at number 14 and kind of just fell off the Billboard charts. And I guess we can talk a little bit now about its reception. So, Kevin, how are you doing today?
Hey, Kev.
And John?
John?
How's it going? Yes, I've taken a break from my notes and now kind of see who's out there. So, always good to see Kevin and John out there. And Joey, he said he's working on layering comic pages, listening to post-hardcore screamo, and love some good music. So I agree. I don't know if we've done any post-hardcore screamo. I had a couple post-hardcore bands in my top 10 list last year, but we haven't covered one of their albums. I guess the post-hardcore Bear vs. Shark are considered post-hardcore, but not screamo. Yeah, but it's like they're kind of, where do you lump them? You just go the closest thing you can find. But yeah, thanks for tuning in, everyone who's out there. And now we're going to talk about the reviews of the album. And of course, you have to look at both sides of the reviews. So the initial reviews of the album weren't great. So when it was released in 1989, they were mixed. It wasn't terrible. There were some terrible reviews. I had to dig some of those out. They were newspaper reviews and things like that, and they just hated it. But some of the places did actually like it. They thought it was good. Rolling Stone, like always, gave it 4 stars. That's what they seem to do, unless it's Bruce Springsteen. He always gets the 5 stars. But they praised its inventiveness. They wrote that it had the inner logic of a stoned high school kid's daydream, and noted its cleverness and originality. And honestly, that's kind of a great way to put it, because it's just it's all over the map. They're talking about these wild capers and everything else. And once we get into the album itself, we'll talk about that. Robert Christgau from the Village Voice, he gave it an A-, calling it a smart ass surrealist triumph. And he recognized the innovation and the humor. And there were some underground critics, college radio stations, that praised its experimental layering and production, and noted that it was pushing hip-hop into new territory. And then the negative reviews, and I had a hard time finding specific negative reviews, but just kind of overviews of what they thought. They thought it was overwhelming, and the album was confusing. They thought it lacked hooks, and it lacked kind of the anthems of License to Ill. I can see that. I mean, that License to Ill was just, it had those kind of catchy choruses and things like that. They thought it was self-indulgent, overly complex. The lyrics were seen as too cryptic. And honestly, if you listen to the lyrics compared to License to Ill, they're kind of on the same level. So I don't know what that complaint is, but who knows? Maybe they hated License to Ill as well, and they didn't think that the songs followed the traditional verse chorus structure, and that's true. But I think that's what people commend it for now, and it also
Right.
by fans, it was not received well by fans, and that's why I never heard this album. I just remember the first album came out, I was in 6th grade, and it was, everyone was talking about it. It was the album that a lot of my friends loved. And then this was 3 years later. So I guess that would have put me in 9th grade, and all my friends saying, "Oh, this one sucks. You don't want to listen to it." So of course I listened to them, but I guess that's all right. We got to listen to it on this, and it wasn't an album I already knew. And they, later on, when we look at the retro reviews, it's now heralded as a hip hop masterpiece. And it even got the rare perfect 10 from Pitchfork. So Pitchfork doesn't give out many perfect 10s. And of course, they probably don't give many or any perfect 10s to an album when it's actually released. It's more looking back on an album. They give it that retro review. So yeah, Dance Gavin Dance is good. I like them. I was gonna go see them, but they played when I was on the cruise. So yeah, Joey's saying that that's what he's listening to. So so this is from Frames and Rhythm. He loved the Beastie Boys back in the day. Wore out License to Ill. Same. I still have my original copy of the album, and it skips and it ticks, but it's what I owned in 6th grade. So I love it. I love still just dropping the needle on that album, and I've kind of introduced my kids to the Beastie Boys through that album as well. And my oldest was listening to this one with me, so it's kind of going through that one. So
I
go for it.
I have License to Ill on vinyl. I have License to Ill on CD, and I have License to Ill on cassette tape. So I have all, I have so I understand getting it worn out, because I have the trifecta on that.
I think I have CD and I have vinyl, and I burned the CD onto cassette so I could play it in the car. So I think that's the ones that I have. But yeah, that album, I have played it out and I love it. I know lyric by lyric. I was like, I don't think I was impressing my children when I was rapping along with every single song. I think perhaps they were shamed and wanted to leave the room, but I felt like I was a badass. It's all you can do is feel that way. But yeah, I know that album inside and out.
I'll say this: this is one of the very first times since we've done the show that I agree with the retrospective of the reviews, because it's not always about chorus and then the next verse, chorus and the next. It's about storytelling, and that's something that these guys, the Beastie Boys, did so well. And it's why Sabotage works so well. It's why everything afterwards works so well for them, because this is what I love about this album. Obviously, we'll get more into it, but I finally agree on the retrospective
and
reviews.
I agree
this. So,
too. It's just, I think in its time, I mean, obviously in its time, it was too different. And I think when we dig into the album itself, I think that was the main problem with it was a huge departure from License to Ill. And it's definitely was going to alienate the frat boys who fell in love with License to Ill. I mean, I was just a dumb 6th grader. I didn't know half the shit they were talking about as they're making, the drug and alcohol references. And I'm sitting there thinking about wiffle ball bats, because I'm like, I play wiffle ball in the front yard. It's like, that's not what they mean, man, but it's okay. Your 6th grade brain doesn't need to comprehend what they're talking about right now. So yeah, like I said, I remember that lyric in particular. It's like, wiffle ball, I play that too. Sorry, sir, you're wrong, but that's all right. The 11-year-old me can talk about it with naivety and just think they were playing baseball out in the front yard like I was. All right, so he was saying, and he knew he loved White Castle. So you know what? I had never had White Castle. I only knew White Castle from the Beastie Boys, So when I finally traveled to the East Coast, that was one of the first things that I had to do was get White Castle, because I'm like, Beasties have been talking about this for so long, I have to go get some White Castle. So yeah. Being from California, we have In-N-Out. We don't have White Castle.
In-N-Out burger, yeah.
White Castle is a treat for the West Coasters when they travel out that way. I guess kind of like East Coasters, they have to get their In-N-Out when they're here. And then they grumble rated. And White Castle, I was actually, when I was out in Tennessee recently, we got the giant pack of White Castle and split it amongst the family. So yeah, it was good stuff.
Yeah.
That's
yeah,
funny.
That's
food when hammered.
That's Whataburger and Waffle House, where here in the Midwest. Yeah, Whataburger and Waffle House.
I think for the out here it's Denny's. You go to the Denny's at 3 a.m. That's people will
Grand Slam.
Burn it off. Yeah. So all right, he says they have a White Castle in Phoenix now, but it's not great. I went to the one in Vegas and I wasn't very impressed. I think you got to get the authentic one.
It's got to be East Coast.
Yeah, it's got to be East Coast. And I know they're talking about moving some In-N-Outs to the East Coast, but I don't think they're going to hit the same. Now you're going to get the people who have transplanted to that coast and they're going to be excited, but they're just going to say it doesn't taste like it's supposed to. And I think a Phoenix White Castle, a Las Vegas White Castle, that's what you run into. It's not authentic like it should be. So Whataburger is good. I've never eaten it. So that's one that I have. They say you got to try it when you travel out. So next time I do a travel con, if a Whataburger's there, then I'm all over it. But I haven't had it yet.
They got good fries.
Okay. I'm always down for
fries. They're better than McDonald's fries, but I'll get in trouble for that.
That's a bold statement. You're going to get attacked in the comments for that. Like, all right, we're not angry at your musical take, but how dare you? Although people have love-hate with McDonald's, so I don't know. But I'll say this, In-N-Out's fries are pretty mediocre. They're not the best. Their burgers are good. I mean, I'll say that. But like I said on a different show, once you learn how to cook any of the fast food burgers, you should be able to beat at your own house. But you don't have to do the work. So I guess that's the beauty of it. I just
we took a spin here.
All right. So let's dig in now. We've kind of talked about how the perceptions of the album have changed over time. So let's dig into our history with the band. So what is your history with the Beastie Boys?
I mean, obviously, License to Ill. That's I'm in my freshman year and going into high school when License to Ill came out, and then I'm getting ready to graduate when Paul's Boutique. But I just love License to Ill. It was a fantastic album. It wasn't until I got my real appreciation for them, though, until I got in the military, and my friend Brian was a huge fan of the Beastie Boys, and so like every time. I'm surprised Brian didn't write the book that you just read, because that's how much knowledge he had. But as you call it, the frat boy, it was the party songs. That CD at that time, it was cassettes when we had it. Those cassettes were playing at every party. I love Paul Revere. I love Brass Monkey, because there's so many. Everybody knows "Fight for Your Right," but there were so many other great songs, and it's the way they tell their stories in it. Again, Paul Revere, another awesome storytelling song. So that's what I appreciated about them when they first started, and that's why I think when we get into this one, but even as we go on further to Sabotage and all those other great albums, everything was a great story. Yeah. And that's why I love the Beastie Boys so much. And now I don't know if I'm as close to Brian as their knowledge, but I would like to think that because of him, I have a good knowledge of the Beastie Boys.
So now you have that deeper understanding of them.
She's correct. Yeah.
That's a great one. She's crafty. You gotta love that. I mean, the first album, it's just, even though they disassociate themselves from some of the songs, they were friggin' bangers. And it's kind of like
Yeah.
Radiohead. They don't want to be known as the band that wrote Creep, but that shit still slaps. I mean, you can say what you want
Slaps.
about Creep, and I love Radiohead's deeper catalog, and I pretty much know note for note every Radiohead album. But that doesn't mean that Creep's not just a damn good song. And same thing with the Beastie Boys.
Yeah.
They kind of became more enlightened. MCA found Buddhism and didn't want to think about acting the way he did back then, but they wrote a catchy and really good song, and you can say you don't want to be associated with it anymore, but it's always going to live in your legacy. Like Radiohead can pretend they didn't write Creep, but guess what? It's still there. It's may not be their masterpiece, but people love
It's
it.
the one everybody sings at karaoke. That's the when you go to karaoke, if somebody puts Radiohead, it's only going to be Creep. It's
and
only
those busting out Knives Out at karaoke. I mean,
right.
I'd like to try, but you can't. I tried Paranoid Android at karaoke.
No.
That was disastrous. I have no range. My vocal range is non-existent, so I'm trying to hit these Tom York notes, and
you're not gonna do it.
It's like at least you could kind of yell your
only
way.
Only Tom York can hit Tom York notes, I think.
Yeah. All right, so Frames and Rhythm said he did a security gig for CSUN years ago, and Mixmaster Mike was the DJ. Yeah, that I would nerd out on that too. I don't blame you. That would be something I would be really excited about. I've got to meet a lot of bands that I love, but I never got to meet anything for the Beastie Boys. So,
for real. No, we are in a resurgence.
Counterculture resurgence in music right now. I'd say so, because I think about what my kids are listening to, and they're going for stuff that I listened to back in high school. It's kind of coming back, and I'm taking my daughter and I are going to see 9 Inch Nails. Then kind of the 2000 stuff too. Grizzly Bear, we're going to see them. So yeah, it's right, and yeah, Joey's here for it, and so am I. I'm very excited about what's going on musically, but always still digging out the new stuff. I mean, that's the one thing is when music goes fully retro, I'm still digging through what's new because there's some good stuff out there. As we've discovered this year on the show, we found a couple really good albums. There's a lot of crap. Don't get me wrong. I'm not going to say it's all good, but if you're willing to dig, you'll find the good stuff, and that's what we're here.
There's a lot of crap.
Throw the suggestions out for you, but for my history with the Beastie Boys, same as yours. It starts with License to Ill. I guess if you were in New York, maybe you would have known Cookie Puss or something like that. But for me, License to Ill, 6th grade. Jeff Kenna was commenting earlier. He was in 6th grade with me, so we probably would have been playing that at my house or his house because it was the album to play. I mean, and then your copy of friggin' let's see, Straight Outta Compton that you had to have someone older than you buy. That we'd be sneaking and listening to that, but lower volumes because if your parents found out, they'd be pissed. But Beastie Boys, you could play at full volume because they weren't going to break the album if they discovered its existence. So yeah, I was listening to the Beastie Boys. I like I said, this one album in particular I missed, but came right back in when Ill Communication came out. I remember seeing them at the Lollapalooza 94, and it was them, it was Tribe Called Quest, it was Nick Cave, it was the Breeders, and it was the Smashing Pumpkins, and it was just phenomenally good from start to finish. And just seeing them and the energy in that crowd when they're playing Sabotage, it was just like the whole place. And this is a giant field in the middle of LA. The whole place was just shaking and jumping. So Beastie Boys caused an earthquake that night, and it was beautiful. And went out to Tibetan Freedom concert. They did that, and that was another great show. I've seen them multiple times. They always brought their best, even when they were getting older. They started to play their instruments and things like that at the end. So they do the rapping. Then they'd sit down and start playing the songs. They even played the Time for Living. They played their own, and Check Your Head. They brought a hardcore song back, kind of going back to the early punk roots. So you gotta love that. So lots of cool late to mid 90s, early 2000s indie. alt rock bands making a comeback, and um, kids of legends are driving the vehicles. So yeah, I agree. There's a lot
Right.
of good stuff coming back, and it's nice to be able to introduce my kids to that. But yeah, I think both my kids are always kind of just seeking out what's going on out there. So they're doing well, and I'll find songs from them. They'll find songs from me. So it's just good. Lots of good music out there. Like I said, just do a little digging, you'll find the good stuff. So there's our history. So now we'll start with our overall thoughts on the album. So what are your overall thoughts with this one?
Man, from listen, this I went out my walk, and this was the album I put to it, and to my walk, and I loved every minute. So as you have the run test, I started. I got my walk test now, but you're just into it, and the music, like I said, the storytelling from. I love Shake Your Rump, and you go into High Plains Drifter and Shadrach and all of these songs, and you're just like every one of them. Like harken it back. We've listened to a few albums this year where each song was different.
Mhm.
We're used to, but we've done Joe Walsh, and other than the first song, everything was all sounded the same. We did 38 Special. Everything all sounded the same. That's what I appreciate about this album and why I loved it, because every song you got something different, and this was leading them into ill communication and sabotage.
Yeah.
That's that step stool for them, and I again, like you said, I think that's why some people didn't like it, because they weren't used to it. But I love that it was storytelling. I mean, you've got almost every one of them are uh, a story in itself, and especially when you get down to B-Boy Bouillabaisse, and you go into all the uh, different steps in that one. So I love that one. And then uh, it just musically, there were some people that were complaining about the Dust Brothers, but I think the sampling and and musically, this was just a fantastic album uh, that that sent it over the top for me. And so again, ladies and gentlemen, mark this down, write it on your calendar, do whatever you got to do. That Dash and Pitchfork are finally agreeing
The
on
first time.
a the first time. So I don't know what you got to do. Put it in the comments. Dash and Pitchfork are finally agreeing on
Happened.
a review, but again, you just get so much sampling, and each song is stitched together so well, and so uh, this is an album that you can listen to when you're walking, when you're running, when you're working out, when you're writing, whatever you're doing. This is a
Mhm.
great album for anything. You can't say that about a lot of the ones that we've reviewed this year, but this album, yeah,
Yeah.
I might put it up there. It's probably going to go next to. I will probably hit License to Ill and then put Paul's Boutique on right afterwards. So I have a
Yeah.
continuous Beastie Boys thing going on there.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
my
That
overall
works.
thoughts. It's a
Yeah.
fantastic album.
Yeah. So I just looked at it. It's dense. It's hugely layered. It has so many samples going on that you won't catch them all the first listen. You won't catch them all the
Right.
second listen. It's one of those albums that rewards multiple listens because you're going to unlock different layers. You're going to unlock different lyrics. You could listen to the album one time through and not pay attention to any of the lyrics, just kind of the flow and the style that they create, because there's so much going on musically that you can just put all of your attention onto that, and then you can listen to it another time and focus just on the lyrics. So I think it's one of those albums that rewards listening to it over and over again. And I think that's the problem with a lot of maybe the initial reviews. They played it once and they're like, wait a second, that's not what I was here for. That's, I wanted more party anthems. I wanted more License to Ill, and it wasn't that.
Right.
But the more you listen to it, the more you'll find. And yeah, the Dust Brothers built this huge tapestry with the music that couldn't be done again. But I remember listening to Yo MTV Raps years later, and they were talking about how the Beastie Boys put so much into this album that you could create 20 albums worth of backbeat from just what they did for this one album. And I can see that now that I've actually played it. It's got
Yeah.
so much going on that, yeah, you could pick apart one song, grab a few of those samples, and you have another track for a song ready to go. And they just
Yep.
have it going and going. And I'm not going to say that it's always perfect. A few times they'll drop something that just kind of, it's jarring. It's like, all right, you're trying a little too hard here. You're showing off sometimes. It's not all going to work, but I'd say, it works 95% of the time. And how many bands can say that?
True.
All right. So now let's dig into our favorite songs. So best songs on this one.
Where let me. Can I say all of it? Listen, you got "Shake Your Rump." It's. I mean, that's gets you into the funk right there. That's it was good. I love "Shake Your Rump." Hey, ladies, looking down the barrel of a gun, Shadrach. Eggman, and then like I said, High Plains Drifter, B-Boy Bouillabaisse, all of those. I mean, it just, I'm not saying this is like the perfect album by any means, but I could at least get into every song. There's not one that I was like, ew, yuck, or I don't want to listen to that. Every song was just like, I'm vibing with it because, again, like I talked about in the overall, is you have so much sampling and so much different directions that you're going that you're never dulled. You're never stagnant. It's not stagnant. It's not dull. It's not bland. It's giving you everything. I like, again, I Plays Drifter. You got the Western rap, for crying out loud. In a way. I mean, seriously, like if you put High Plains Drifter to an old Clint Eastwood movie, it would fit in perfect. And I love that you still have, we're progressing in music, but some of these songs can go back into the past and you could put them in a soundtrack and they would fit right in. I think that's, again, another thing that I appreciate about the Beastie Boys is their music is timeless, in 40, 50, 60 years, we're still going to be talking about License to Ill. We're going to be talking about Paul's Boutique, Ill Communication. We're going to be talking about all these albums because they are timeless. And that's what these songs I feel like are timeless. And so I Car Thief, again, another good song. I'm just sitting there trying to think of all the songs in my head, and all of them are just good. But I think my favorite one, probably High Plains Drifter, followed by Shake Your Rump. Those are my top two, and then everything else is still good.
Yeah, so I just kind of started off with Shake Your Rump, same, and it just kind of, it's funky, it's layered, and it showcases how good they are blending their rapping together. I mean, they're just on top of things. It's smooth, it flows, it's just perfection. I mean, you can tell a good rapper from a bad, and if I tried to move at the speed and blending with two others the way they are, it would be a humiliating affair, and I wouldn't even begin it. I remember I was at a friend's house that had Rock Band, and we were they had a Beastie Boys song on Rock Band, and oh man, I just realized how inept I am at rapping, first off, and just how good they are at rapping. So
they are
trying something like Shake Your Rump, I would just humiliate myself. They'd probably make me sleep outside. It would be an embarrassment, but the Beasties just flow and move, and it's a beautiful way. I would think of it more like the opener because it kind of opens without much. It kind of, this would have been a stronger way to open it, and you could have taken was that To All the Girls, but we'll talk about that in my skip tracks. But yeah, it's just a beautiful opening rap song of the album. I agree. I liked Eggman. It's ridiculous. It's a song about egging people, but it's so friggin' smooth. You're just bobbing your head along, and it's the most absurd song, and yet I love it. So High Plains Drifter, I threw that one on there as well. It's
Yeah.
Beastie Story songs, kind of harkens back to Paul Revere. And I could probably,
Yes.
if I heard the beat, I could rap that entire song right now. I won't, because I'm going to spare you all. We've already discussed my prowess at rap, and it is a zero point 0. Pitchfork would give me that. Maybe like a 0.1 for at least attempting. But yeah, I love the great caper songs that put the Beasties in the middle of the action, and they're just telling it like they're living it. And it's
Yep.
just a great fun one. 3 minute
Yeah,
rule.
you feel like you're with them.
Yeah.
They make you feel you're like you're right there in the song with them. Yeah, that's what I love about them.
Yeah, and 3 minute rule, I love that because it's just a brag track, and that's something. When I was going for the lyrics, I'm just gonna look for the best boasting lyrics because this album, they're boasting all over the place. They are definitely flexing their muscles, and really a lot of 80s and 90s rap. That's what it was all about. Was just why are we better than you? And it's kind
Yep.
of before Drake and what is
Kendrick
his
Lamar.
name? Kendrick Lamar were beefing. Every rapper was beefing with other rappers, and they're just trying to say, why am I the best? And you listen to old LL Cool J and Run DMC, and it's always, they're not going to specifically name one of the other rappers most of the time, but they're just going to name why they are vastly superior to every other rapper. Doesn't matter who they are. They're all sucker MCs. The ones that matter are them, the ones that are rapping right now. And, they were friends with Run DMC, Public Enemy. They were friends with those bands,
Yeah.
so they would never call them out. In fact, you get a Public Enemy sample thrown into one of the songs on this. So yeah, you can see, but they're just in general going to tell you why they are better and more superior, and I just love it because the way they tell you why they're superior are just some of the best lines ever. So yeah, once we dig into the lyrics, we'll do that. And
The
then
lyrics.
the Shadrock, I love that song, and that one I got plenty of good lyrics. But yeah, it's just kind of, you have the opening singing, just blends into this smooth brag track, and that's you talk about the Beastie Story songs. My second favorite kind of Beastie song is the brag track, the boast track, where it's just like, you know what? Why are we better than you? Let us explain it while showing that we're better than you with such good rapping. Yeah. And there's some rappers that they, probably could hold their own, but Beastie Boys don't care. They're going to tell you why they're the best and why they just got your girl. And you're going to be like, I understand. My girl is yours now. All right. So let's dig into some lyrics now. So what are some lyrics that stood out in this one?
Which came first, the chicken or the egg? I egged the chicken, then I ate his leg. I love egg. Oh, I love Eggman. And then you've got. I'm gonna deep dive here for a minute into Johnny Ryall. It's still this is a there's some deep undertones, ladies and gentlemen, on Johnny Ryall. You have once after my first listen, I really connected with Johnny Ryall. So we listen to it first, we do our notes and everything, and then we go back and listen to it again and again and again. Now here's a little story. It starts off. Now here's a little story I got to tell. They start off. It's kind of like Paul Revere. So I'm like, all right, I'm getting it. But then it goes in about a vagrant loser who's doing well. And now I hope you'll take a lesson from this tale. So please sit back and enjoy the tale. Johnny Ryall. At the time he was a no good bum, and he moved out to the Rockways from his slum. His mama and his papa, they both told me, son, you're a bum. You're a bum. You're a no good bum. This is a guy who's Johnny Ryall has lived a hell of a life.
Yeah.
And I can't say that I can relate in certain things, but I can empathize with this guy. I can empathize with Johnny Ryall, and this guy, I just love Johnny Ryall. The lyrics on it just flow. So again, like you talked about, the way that they rap and the way that their rhymes come in, they're just so good at it, so quick. And I love Johnny Ryall. That was a good one. what do we have? Looking down the barrel of a gun. I'm gonna die, gonna die, gonna die for the microphone. These guys, they love what they do. You can tell it in each song. And I just thought that line. That's just one little line from Looking Down the Barrel of a Gun, but it says so much that they live for this. And probably another one that I like. We're gonna, hey ladies, I know you don't, but step into the party, disrupt the whole scene. When it comes to the beats, well, I'm a fiend. Again, this is a boasting song. It's a boasting to the ladies, and I just thought and on the chorus, they said there was no really catchy lyric or choruses. I thought Hey Ladies had a great one. Shadrach has great chorus. So, I think there's a lot of standout on a lot of these songs, but those are some of my favorite lyrics.
Yeah, and Johnny Royale, that was actually about a real homeless man that they knew who got screwed over by a record label, ended up homeless, and it talked about how they gave him Def Jam jackets and things like that to keep him warm, and Russell Simmons was not very happy about that. He's like, that's not who I want representing my brand out there. So yeah, he wasn't happy. But Russell Simmons and the Beastie Boys definitely had kind of an ugly falling out. Things didn't go well. That's why they went to Capitol. And of course, at first, Russell Simmons was probably thinking, this is great. Look at how they failed when this album came out. And then of course they became huge and even managed to kind of find a way to persevere when grunge broke, because you have, 80s rappers coming out in a time when I think Ill Communication was, or Check Your Head was 92, the same year you get Nevermind. And that would be death of a lot of different bands, but they were able to kind of find a way to become part of the 90s without just becoming a grunge band. They never had to adapt in a way. They always stayed true to themselves. But yeah, that was about with the Russell Simmons, and they gave him the jackets, and they just were talking about him because he was a rockabilly star, and he got screwed over by a record label, and they were probably writing a lot of it because they felt like they were getting screwed over by a record label, because Russell Simmons told them, I want a follow-up album, and he stopped giving them royalties because they weren't recording the follow-up as soon as they got off the tour, and he wanted it now, and he wanted more party anthems. He basically wanted them to become Andrew WK of rap. It's just like every song's about partying and how we're going to talk about partying. And yeah, if you don't know Andrew WK, look for the record with his face all bloody, and every song is about him partying. So that's who they wanted. They wanted the Beastie Boys to be the party rappers and just keep doing that. And Russell Simmons was making millions on this album, and he was cutting the Beastie Boys off. And that's why they actually, after the production of Paul's Boutique, they blew all the money that they got as advances, because they were living a wild life. They were having fun. They weren't quite as partying as they were during the Ill Communication tour, but it's not like they were choir boys sitting at home and going to bed at 9:00. They were out having a good time, and they blew through all this money. And Russell Simmons thought he was going to have the last laugh, but of course everything changed, and not like Russell Simmons is struggling now either, but at the time it looked like it was them getting screwed over by the label, and they were kind of their own Johnny Royale. So yeah, that one is a good one. And then one of the lyrics, I grabbed tons of lyrics from Shadrach because it's the best boasting ever. If I had a penny for my thoughts, I'd be a millionaire. More Adidas sneakers than a plumber's got pliers. Got more suits than Jacoby and Myers. And it's like, oh my gosh. It's like they're just throwing shit out of like, oh, we saw this commercial on TV. Let's throw that out there. So my year would be good, just like Goodyear's tires, because I'm out picking pockets at the Atlantic Antic. And it's just some of these references if you're younger, you wouldn't even know, because that's
you're not gonna know.
Jacoby and Myers commercials. That's all you saw. You're watching TV, you're gonna see those stupid commercials. And out here, I don't know if you have it out there, Larry H. Parker, who got you 2.1 million. And it's and I got money like Charles Dickens. I got the girlies in the coop like the Colonel's got the chickens. And
chicken.
You boast better. I'm lucky when this album came out, I had no girlfriend because they couldn't steal her from me, because they would have. And then
Oh
I
man,
got
yeah.
I'm Madder Than Mad's Alfred E. Newman. It's like, all right, you're gonna throw a Mad reference. I gotta love it. It's beautiful. So yeah, because I got more stories than JD's got Salinger.
Salinger.
Just
Yeah, that was my favorite. That's probably my favorite line. Oh, that's why I said Shadrach, man. There's so many people were, it's, if you look up best songs on the album, Shadrach's not even on there, but Shadrach is probably one of the best on
yeah.
on the album.
Yeah, I love that one. I think that would be my top one. It's hard because there's
Yeah,
so many good ones. It's hard to say, okay, that's definitively my top one. So, hey
ADM.
Ray, we're not yelling at something today, so I'll apologize in advance if Ray wants to hear me go off on
We're
an
not
album. Maybe the,
we're not angry old men today.
it's inevitable. I'll go off on something again. It's just not this one. Give it time. Give it time, and I'll find a way to become hostile at 70s rock or something else. All right. So let's see. Any other lyrics that you want to grab? I don't want to just go through all mine, but yeah, I
Nah,
kind of focused
nah.
instead of going for the stories, I just focused on the boasting lyrics because I love them the most. I just love when they talk shit.
This is English teachers. If there's any English teachers out there, this is an album you use for your whether it's creative writing or breaking down how things work in the English. This is you could study this. This is one. Forget Taylor Swift. Take Beastie Boys. Take their albums and make it a college class because you're going to learn a lot more. I promise you. But yeah, I just this we could sit and talk about each song lyrically and have a show on each song. I think
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
lyrically wise,
You
because it's
could,
just
and
that
even
good.
even at their simplest, it's like okay, you could talk about metaphor that they build in there. You could talk about
Oh yeah.
illusions and all the stuff that I have to teach. But as teaching, elementary school, I don't think I'll be bringing out the Beastie Boys lyrics because the kids
Right.
don't need to learn all about marijuana and. So yeah, there we need to go
Yeah,
on.
yeah.
I'm a
There's probably
writer.
not.
Like I'm a writer, a
Yeah, there's
poet,
probably
a
not a good
genius, and I
song on
know
this
I
one.
don't buy Chiba, I grow it. And like, what's Chiba, Mr. Davis? Like, never mind. Never mind.
High school teachers and college on up. This is where.
Yeah.
Let me.
Keep them out of the elementary school.
I don't want to get you
I don't
fired
need the
up.
parent
All right.
complaints that would be coming down the pipeline on that one.
No, but seriously, you could. There's so much lyrically that you can. Again, like you said, the metaphor, the alliteration, the man, everything on it. Again, that you could take. Like now, I want to take High Plains Drifter and turn it into a book, um, like a post apocalyptic western. Like that's where that would fit. Maybe I will do that, but that's
There
how
you go.
good it is.
You
Yeah.
have many songs you need to write from the albums we're covering, or many books you need to write. So you're going to have a stacked shelf full of books, but that's not a bad thing because when inspiration
Yeah.
strikes, you dig into it. So, all right. Any other lyrics you want to talk about before we move on? I had a couple, but I don't want to steal your thunder if you have the
No, you
same
good. Go.
ones.
Keep
We're
going.
3-minute rule, my favorite brag track. I'm out of your back door. I'm into another. Your boyfriend doesn't know about me and your mother. So yeah,
Ah,
it's so good. So many good
that's why it's
lyrics.
not a.
Beastie
That's not.
Boys are always rife with the amazing lyrics.
That's why that's not a elementary school.
Yeah, there's too much. I would end up fired. Like, all right, I have lots of free time on my hands now because I decided to cover the Beastie Boys in my third grade class. It would
That's
not be
great.
wise. But like you said, college, you can do that. You can talk about all the different parts of like figurative language that they use because it would work well. Just yeah, you gotta watch yourself because they're not all going to be appropriate for even a high school. It just depends on if it's a progressive kind of high
Yeah.
school or not. So yeah, so let's see. We're gonna move into skip tracks. Any tracks you want to skip on this one?
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. It kind of like last week where we were talking with our friend on the Bruce
Springsteen.
Springsteen, where he would, yeah. There's absolutely no track that I would skip on this. I enjoyed it from start to finish. I like the way it started with the mellow, the mellow tune, and then it ended with the mellow tune.
Yeah.
Every little thing. There's not one uh, I would skip. There are, I have my favorites, but I can't say I have a least favorite. I think I have my favorites, and all the rest of them are just good. All of them are good enough to be listened to. So I skip none, zero. Mark that
Yeah,
down, people.
I got one. I mean, I think the opening track is kind of misplaced, and I think to all the girls would have fit better just throw it into the B-boy bouillabaisse, which is kind of
Goalie base.
everything on the kitchen sink anyway. So why not throw that in there? Because I think Shake Your Rump would have been a way stronger way to open the album. Would it have made it more successful? I don't know. I mean, I think the album was doomed to because it just wasn't what people's expectations were. But I think that
Yeah.
song throws itself better in a song that's already 12 minutes long with all kinds of styles thrown throughout it. And then, it's just a silly track, but the 5-piece chicken dinner, it's kind of nothing to it. But rap tracks throw their rap albums throw the kind of like the little skit songs in there because you
Yeah.
also have the um what is that the Ask for Janice, which is just the commercial for Paul's Boutique. So I understand why they're
Yeah.
there. It's hard to say to skip them, but if I don't know, I guess they're so short. Even if I'm on a run, I was like, yeah, it's not worth the effort to try to skip through it. And I thought with the way that they did the anniversary edition of the album, they separated the B-boy bouillabaisse into all different tracks, which I think is
Tracks.
better
Yeah.
because all as one giant 12-minute song, it'd be hard because there's so many different parts of it and they're not really connected movements. They're just okay, here's a beatbox song, here's another one, and then thrown in there you get Stop That Train, which is one of my favorite songs on the whole album.
Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah. Yeah.
And it's one of those ones where it's so much better pulling those apart now, where before you would have had to listen to all 12 minutes, some of them more forgettable than others, and you'd be like, all right, fast forward button on here because I want to get to the good stuff. But when they're pulled apart as individual tracks, it works a lot better. They're
Absolutely.
definitely better apart than just together as one big lumped track because there's some really great stuff in there, and then there's some kind of mega award stuff in there. But when it's pulled apart, it's okay because you don't
Yeah.
have to worry about it. But when it was all smushed together, I would think that would have been something that would have been more alienating to people. Some of the grumblers of the album when it came out, because when Pitchfork reviewed it and gave it the perfect 10, it was with the remastered edition that spread those tracks apart. So you didn't just
Right.
listen to
Right.
one 12-minute song. You could stop it in the middle, like, okay, then I'll come back to it. Because, yeah, let's Stop That Train kind of lumped into all of that wouldn't have been as impactful as just standing alone on its own track.
No, I agree with that. Yeah. That's good. Good breakdown.
All right.
Absolutely.
Little bits of skip, but not really. More just, the quickie little tracks, but they go so fast that, all right, it's a minute. And especially when I'm playing it on vinyl, which is what I have, am I going to get up and put the effort of moving the needle for a track that's 48 seconds? No. I was like, all right, let it do its thing. But if that was all 12 minutes, yeah, it would have been harder. Now it's okay, they're short, they're quick, it keeps moving, and yeah, it just works. So all right, we got another easy
And,
one. Last week was a harder one for this category, but now we have an
yeah.
easy one for today.
I'm keeping it easy. It's like I said, it's going right next to License Hill. It's got a lot of, like you said, because they broke it up. It's got a lot of tracks on it now, but it still goes fast. It's still a relatively fast, fun album. There's nothing I would change about it. So I'm keeping it. It's going to the front of the line uh, as far as a listen to, where it's going to be a majority listen. And I loved it. It's we could sit there and retrospectively, like, because we're kind of retrospectively now because we hadn't heard it back in the 80s.
Yeah.
But even I don't think I would have changed. My mind wouldn't have changed back then either. I
Yeah.
wouldn't have said anything different back then that I'm saying now, because um, music is all about how you're feeling and what you're getting out of the song. And if all you're looking for is to be a party dude, then that's all you're gonna you're not gonna like anything outside party dude song anyways.
Yeah.
You got to be able to not even if you do expand your horizons, you may not like everything, but at least you can say you sampled it and listened to
Mhm.
it. And I'm for glad I'm glad that we got to listen to this one,
Yeah.
because it is a fantastic album, so I'm keeping it.
Yeah. I'm returning it. Not really. I'm returning the album I got from Amazon because it had a friggin' scratch on it. So I'm returning that to get a
Oh,
fresh, clean copy.
nice.
Because, yeah, I was playing it and the last 3 tracks are skipping and skipping. And I finally looked at it. I'm like, oh, yeah, it's got an ugly scratch on it. And I just bought the
Boo,
album.
Amazon.
I am returning it to get a clean copy. And if I have to do it 5 times, I will, because I want a good copy that I can play and not have to have a skipping track. So I'm returning my defective copy to get a clean one. But no, I'm keeping it. I wish I had learned it in the 80s when it came out. It was, again, I trusted the opinions of people, and the people were wrong. Just like Alabama Shakes was the other one that people had told
Yeah.
me, oh, they loved the first album. The second one sucks. You don't even want to listen to it. And I was like, okay, I'll take your word for it. And well, if nothing else, at least we got to cover it on here because I listened to the people. But the motto is don't listen to the people. If you love a band, try it yourself. It may suck. I mean, not all bands are putting out good material all the time. And if the Beastie Boys had kept going, would their material have been good, or would they have gone completely experimental? Because that seems to be the direction they were going in. They were
Yeah,
recording
absolutely.
instrumentals and things like that. Grand Royal Records, they had that, and they were releasing different things on that. So they were playing around a lot more, but I think at their core they were always going to be who they were, but they would just, have a deeper and weirder catalog, and there's nothing wrong with that. And there's still a few Beastie Boys albums I haven't played. I think the last 2 I haven't played, so I got to go and revisit those and actually visit those for the first time and see, did I just kind of blow it off. But I think when MCA died, it just kind of threw me into a thing where
Just
I was going back to the old stuff, and I was just so
yeah.
upset to see him gone, because I worked as an intern for Grand Royal Records, a street team intern. So it's like I was
Oh, very nice.
connected with them. Yeah, so it was fun. I got to
Yeah.
go to lots of concerts for free, so it was good. And they signed one of my favorite bands at the drive-in. With going back to what Joey was talking about, post-hardcore. If you haven't played at the drive-in, play them. We talked about them with Bear versus Shark. That's one of their favorite bands, and
That's one of their
they're
favorite
amazing.
bands. Yeah.
Definitely revisit their stuff. But yeah, I'm definitely keeping it when Amazon sends me a copy that's not scratched. Because unlike the Kate
Nice.
Bush that was scratched to hell, I'm not worried about it. I can live with the scratched copy. So yeah, some of them I
this
want
is
my
this
clean copy. This one I do.
this rates a 0, by the way, ladies and gentlemen. This rates a
0.
0 on the Kate Bush scale. That's a
Yeah,
good thing, by the way. That's a
a 0.
fantastic thing.
Yeah, if you're new to the show, the more Kate Bushes you have, the less likely we are to revisit your album. To put it nicely, because I don't need to be attacked. We're on an attack-free day. Maybe, I don't know. You never know. I could have said
Yeah, we want
something that irritates somebody. Someone who thinks that Creep is a bad song, but is like,
to.
it's good. All right. So next
Yeah.
week,
All right.
we are digging
Yeah.
into Pet Sounds by the Beach Boys. And we are going to have my friend and the member, actually, I guess the founder of the independent shoegaze band Modern Time Machines, Ben Galam. He's going to be joining us next week because the Beach Boys
Very
are
nice.
his all-time favorite. He loves them so much, and I figure he's a good one because he's kind of like you were talking about your friend who has all the deep knowledge of the Beastie Boys. He has all that deep knowledge of the Beach Boys, so I figured who better to bring in than him, and hopefully Modern Time
Nice.
Machines gets a new album out soon, and we'll cover it right here on the show so we can ask him kind of what's going on with his band there. I know they're playing some shows. They play locally, more LA area, but yeah, he'll be joining us next week because he is the foremost expert that I know on the Beach Boys. So who better to bring in than someone who knows it deep and well?
Excellent.
All right. So, oh my gosh, I'm trying to look at the sponsor stuff and I cannot read it. They changed the layout. So I know we have 2 sponsors. So I'm going to play those and then we'll wrap it up for this week.
Excellent.
All right. So it says May. I have to imagine if it's still here.
Oh, I
Then
just
it's
picked up his
gotta be
book.
okay. So you got the Slaughterville. I'm
I
assuming
got
it's
the
probably
Slaughterville
still got
book.
late pledges available. I'm not sure, but you can check it out. Go on Kickstarter and search it up and see what you find. And then we have one more sponsor.
Yes,
All
yes,
right.
Lori, you did.
All right. So Frames and Rhythm, thank you for tuning in. So yes, Laura, you missed the entire show, but hey, go back on YouTube. You can watch it. You can see us talking good about an album. You thought I never liked albums, but you just got a stretch of shows where I got very grumpy about albums. But some people find that more entertaining. They want to see me angry looking at you, Ray, who was trying to poke the bear with throwing wings things at me. So yes. All right. So you're not lame. You'll be on in a couple weeks when we talk about Queens of the Stone Age. I'm excited about that one. And yeah, the story how I haven't played an album by one of my top 5 favorite bands is a crazy one. So when we get to it, you'll hear why I didn't know that album, and it all goes to me being cheap. But we'll get there when we talk about why when I talk about Queens of the Stone Age are one of my top 5 albums or top 5 bands of all time. How would I not know the album? We got a story, but Lori will be there joining us. So yes, you never catch the
this is
album that I like. Yeah, so you always miss it. You see me
this was
grumpy.
actually one. This was actually one I picked this time that we all liked. I just want
yeah,
pat on the. I want a pat on the
because
back for this one.
everybody's gonna think that it's my pick because that's generally how it goes. They'll be like, "Oh, he picked this," but I picked the weird stuff that no one knows. I wouldn't even want to call it weird. I picked the obscure stuff that no one knows because we're trying to shine a spotlight on the great indie bands. Hashtag listen to Jolie Led, please. Listen to Bear versus Shark. It's damn good. Listen to Mr. Gnome, those ones. And I think Mr. Gnome actually added a show out in your direction. So you got to look that up. When they were on the show, you said, "Oh, are you going to do? Is it Oklahoma? They have one in Oklahoma City, I believe." So
nice. I will go see that.
So yeah, I'll throw you the link to that. But yeah, Dash, he picks the more known stuff, and this one he picked the winner. So we got to give him credit where it's due. Because if I don't like it, I'm all too vocal about it. So Dash, this is your moment. Enjoy your victory lap. So yes, Lori's saying, all right. So yes, Lori's impressed. I'm impressed. We're all happy. I'm just happy. I mean,
I'll take
I can't complain because I picked Bruce Springsteen. So honestly, we our roles have reversed. I mean, neither one of us hated it. Although one of the songs came on my Spotify, my wife's like, "This song sucks," but she didn't stay in the room to listen to the boss. So she's more vocal. She doesn't like it. Like, this sucks. Why are we playing this? I'm like, Spotify thinks I love Bruce Springsteen now because of that, and now it's gonna think I love Beastie Boys. And you know what? It's a better thing for it to think. But yeah, we're gonna be back next week listening to Pet Sounds from the Beach Boys. And I got some negative words about the Beach Boys, but it's not their fault. It's Funko's fault. And I forever hate Funko for ruining Beach Boys songs for me. But we'll hear some stories next week. So I'll have a little grumpiness, I guarantee. But my friend Ben's gonna keep me on the rails because he loves the Beach Boys too much for me to go full anger on them. I just will yell at Funko till my dying day. I'll be old man shaking fist at Funko in their booth at WonderCon. But that's a story for next week. Don't miss it. Tune in. It's going to be great. And then join us Saturday. We'll have Saturday morning comic talk this week. We'll have it next week. And then I'll be at San Diego Comic-Con, and I'm going to try to find a way to live stream the panel that I'm going to be on the Madness Network. I'm going to be on a Writing for Indie Comics panel at San Diego Comic-Con, and I'm going to see what I can do about getting it on the network. So that's what's coming up for our next 2 weeks. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you, Frames and Rhythm. Thank you, Joey, for engaging with us through this show. Appreciate having you here, and we will see you next week.
Bye.